Bill Gates and his cronies at the World Health Organization have been caught red-handed, targeting the most vulnerable, our kids, our young people. It's called Exercise Polaris, a 2-day so-called preparedness drill that's straight out of a dystopian nightmare. Gates thought he could bury it, scrambling to silence the leaks, but the dam has cracked wide open. Brave whistleblowers, heroes in the shadows, are stepping up, risking everything to drag this evil into the light. What are they hiding? What's so twisted that they try to keep the preparedness exercise a secret this time? Stick with us, because this is just a beginning, and the truth will chill you to the bone. Before we dive in, join the TPV free speech community over on Soju. Soju is a digital space where ideas and information can take place without any annoying algorithms or restrictive rules getting in the way of free expression. Here's what you need to know. The World Health Organization just ran something called Exercise Polaris. Sounds innocent, right? Wrong. This was a 2-day global simulation, 15 countries, 350 experts, all playing war games with a fictional virus. If you're not awake yet, this is your alarm clock. Let's break it down. The WHO says they're testing their shiny new Global Health Emergency Corps, GHEC for short. They're calling it a coordinated mechanism to deploy so-called surge teams and virus experts across borders when the next pandemic hits. You know, the one Bill Gates said will get everybody's attention this time, and the supposedly retired Anthony Fauci keeps telling us all about.
My concern, Walter, is that whenever that happens, the next outbreak will be of a respiratory disease that's easily transmissible, that has a significant degree of morbidity.
And we are making this a little bit more dangerous with the cuts and our attitude toward science?
Oh, absolutely.
Let's call it what it is, a pandemic treaty dress rehearsal. You know that shady treaty they've been scheming to strip nations of their sovereignty? The world saw through it and said no way. But the elite, Gates, WHO, the usual suspects, won't let it die. Just this week, over 20 global health agencies, from the CDC to UNICEF, were in lockstep under their command, running a simulation of a viral outbreak targeting the young. It's fictional for now, but we've seen this movie before.
This thing was a disaster from the get-go, and it's become apparent to me and many others that there was a military-grade PSYOP propaganda campaign that was pushed forth, and it's come out through FOIA requests that the government gave over $1 billion to mainstream media to push the vaccine narrative and censor anybody with a counter narrative, not allow them on their shows. So informed consent at a bare minimum was violated for the whole country and the globe, in my humble opinion.
They've got their playbook ready to throw us back into global panic mode, and they're revving up as I speak. But don't take my word for it. That's straight from the source. Stick around. We'll unpack that bombshell in a minute. But first, let's quickly rewind to Event 201, a slick fictional coronavirus pandemic drill cooked up in 2019 by Gates, the World Economic Forum, and their elite buddies. All the major players were there, gaming it out. Then, bam, COVID lands right on schedule. Coincidence? Not if you've been paying attention. Watch the footage from that year and tell me that wasn't their blueprint. Remember, all of this footage was shot in 2019, months before the COVID pandemic.
On behalf of our center and our partners, the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our audience here in New York, as well as our larger virtual audience participating online today. The Event 201 scenario is fictional. Today's scenario is going to simulate meetings of a multi-stakeholder group called the Pandemic Emergency Board.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
There's been some conspiracy theories that are around about the potential that pharmaceutical companies or the UN have released this for their own benefit.
And maybe this is a time for us to showcase some cases where we are able to bring forward some bad actors and leave it before the courts to decide whether they have actually spread some fake news.
A new coronavirus. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia.
In related news, a significant demand for personal protective equipment like N95 masks and gloves are on the rise. Patients are overwhelming healthcare facilities. People are avoiding public spaces out of fear of infection and in compliance with public health recommendations. Our U.S. affiliate has just released polling results on public expectations for a vaccine, and 65% of those polled are eager to take the vaccine, even if it's experimental.
I am not optimistic about having a vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
With enough money and political will, anything is possible.
Penalties have been put in place for spreading harmful falsehoods, including arrests.
If the solution means controlling and reducing access to information, I think it's the right choice.
What exactly are the risks and benefits of staying home from work? Absolutely, we need to save lives, but we literally cannot afford a heavy-handed response that suffocates our economy.
What went down next played out like they'd pressed start on a pre-written script, every dystopian beat falling into place. Now, according to those on the inside, the elite are up to their old tricks again, with the preparedness exercise held in Geneva this week. Here's the kicker. They named it Polaris, the North Star. Think about that. The elite love their symbols. Polaris is the fixed point, the guide in the dark. They're telling us they're the lights we're supposed to follow when the next crisis hits. But who's steering the ship? Dr. Tedros is out there preaching global cooperation is essential, just as he did in 2019, while Qatar's Dr. Soha Al-Bayat talks about cultivating trust before the storm. Trust. That's their Trojan horse, folks. Get us all cozy and compliant so they can roll out the real virus. Maybe something from a lab, maybe something worse, and then lock us down under their star. Why now? Globalism is dead. Liberal elites like Keir Starmer are admitting it, and they're desperate to glue it back together with this. And don't kid yourself, Trump's election doesn't mean the puppet masters are packed up and gone home. They're still out there, pulling levers, whispering in the right ears and biding their time. Case in point. Why is the UK government stonewalling on what went down between new Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Bill Gates, and BlackRock CEO just days after Starmer was elected?
It's far too much of a coincidence. As you said, BlackRock and Bill Gates are some of the biggest owners of farmland in America. Suddenly they fly over and within days the budget comes out of the blue, an attack on our farmers. I've stood next to the farmers on many protests. At the end of the day, they put food on our table. They put food in our supermarkets. Without the farmers, you know, we are screwed, really, in this country.
I will say, Adam, I and others are just putting two and two together. Bill Gates was in Downing Street, the farmers have been attacked. But the interesting thing is Downing Street haven't said, and they still refuse to say, to journalists such as Lewis Brackpool via FOIs, what he was doing there. I don't know why the secrecy, but we are putting two and two together.
The global elite are still pulling strings. They are still rolling out their agenda. And Exercise Polaris isn't just a preparedness exercise, it's a blueprint. According to an insider, the elites are gearing up for this fictional virus to go live soon, and they're confident the brainwashed masses will be begging for their search teams and digital IDs. So, Exercise Polaris. It's not a drill, it's a signal. The elite are warming up the stage, and with the audience they plan to control. Here is how it rolls. They create the mess, open borders, food shortages, and all manner of chaos. Then the public screams for help, scared out of their wits. And bam, here come the saviours with their cross-border search teams and digital IDs, ready to tag and track every last one of us like cattle.
I also think this issue to do with the technology and the digital infrastructure, I just want to emphasise how important I think that is. Because in the end, you need the data. You need to know who's been vaccinated and who hasn't been. Some of the vaccines that will come on down the line will be multiple. There'll be multiple shots. So you've got to have, for reasons to do with the healthcare more generally, but certainly for a pandemic or for vaccines, you've got to have a proper digital infrastructure.
The elite don't fix problems, they engineer them to tighten the noose. The information-starved masses lap it up every time, too busy scrolling headlines to see the trap. Wake up, folks. Digital ID isn't the answer, it's the endgame. After the hell humanity has been dragged through these last few years, we've got no choice but to watch the pandemic prophecies like hawks. Every move, every whisper. It's glaringly clear now. They're gunning for our kids. And this isn't some spur-of-the-moment scheme. It's been simmering for 2 years. ever since Gates kicked off the infamous catastrophic contagion exercise in Brussels back in 2022, laying the groundwork for this nightmare step by calculated step. What was catastrophic contagion planning? It was planning a severe pandemic worse than COVID-19, targeting young people and kids. According to Gates, the lessons learned strongly lean towards a much stronger stance against so-called misinformation than during the COVID pandemic. How does this play out in the real world? It means there'll be even more censorship and suppression of free speech when the next pandemic is rolled out. After all, during the COVID pandemic, the so-called conspiracy theorists won out, which is not acceptable to Bill Gates. Despite having the weight of the mainstream media and the globalist control infrastructure stacked against us, we managed to prevail by refusing to be bullied and silenced by their authoritarian tactics. So, Bill Gates and the WHO are planning the next catastrophic contagion pandemic, killing younger people, and where much stronger misinformation control will be undertaken. According to Gates, countries must prioritize efforts to increase trust in government and public health. If you're wondering what that looks like, take a look at New Zealand, where WF plant Jacinda Ardern took her cues directly from Klaus Schwab's playbook. The government is your single source of truth, Ardern told the population. And unless you hear it from us, it's not the truth.
We will share with you the most up-to-date information daily. You can trust us as a source of that information. You can also trust the Director General of Health and the Ministry of Health. For that information, do feel free to visit at any time to clarify any rumour you may hear, covid19.govt.nz. Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. We will share everything we can, everything else you see, a grain of salt.
That would be the same Jacinda Ardern who bragged that she has direct access to Facebook's censorship portal. And the same Ardern who was immediately given a job at the WEF when she was thrown out of office by the population she'd been abusing for years. But the elites are going to have to do more than censor social media this time round, because the people have woken up, and they're not playing the elites' games anymore. A physician deep in the WHO's response protocols just spilled the tea. Gates' entire crew is starting to squirm under his so-called vision. And who can blame them? It's a grim, twisted picture, and the cracks are finally showing.
No names here, just call me Doc. I'm a physician, worked infectious disease for years, and I was at Exercise Polaris as a medical advisor for the WHO crew. Spent 2 days in that hellhole, supposed to be analyzing response protocols. But what I saw? It's a plan to unleash a virus that guts our kids. Babies still in strollers, kiddos running around recess, teens just hitting their stride. The young and fit are targets too. Anyone with a long life ahead. These elite bastards are dead set on whittling down the population, and they'll use any damn excuse to lock us in their grip. Gates was rabid about keeping this under lock and key. They shoved these suffocating NDAs down our throats, sign or you're ruined. Threats of legal hammerings, maybe worse if we said a word. Trump sitting in the White House has them panicking. He's got them paranoid, turning secretive as hell, speeding up their endgame before he can derail it. Too many of us, even in the WHO, even those on his payroll, aren't buying Gates' twisted gospel anymore. Leaks broke out, forced their hand to post some vague crap on their site, but they're not telling the real story. They know the jig's half up. This ties back to that catastrophic contagion gig Gates ran in Brussels 2022, mapped out a virus that had ripped through kids like wildfire, hitting their little systems hardest. Polaris was the next chapter, not just a drill, but a live blueprint. Info was guarded tighter than a vault. I only got snippets because of my role, but I caught wind during a closed-door brief. This sweaty virologist, some hotshot from the States, was pacing, muttering about pathogenicity tweaks. He said it's designed to spike fevers and drown kids' lungs in days, not weeks. I pressed him after, over coffee, and he let slip. We've got models from 22 and samples are already cycling. Edmonton had a scare last winter, hushed up fast. That's not theory, that's a weapon in the works. They pulled COVID off, and with Trump poking around, they're gunning to drop this kid killer fast. I'm spilling this because I've seen the charts, the data, those little lives, giggling or scribbling, they don't deserve to be pawns in this depopulation game. The elite think they've got us sewn up, but they don't own the truth. Not yet.
Why would the elite wage war on those who provide our food? Why would they plan to mandate experimental vaccines and force humanity to comply with digital ID to track their every move? Why would they target our children with a bioweapon? More and more people are waking up and seeing the global elite for what they've always been, deranged psychopaths intent on destruction and domination. Here at The People's Voice, we're determined to continue exposing the crimes of the elites, but we need